Hey, what's going on, y'all? You are now watching the Tell the Story Doc podcast on All of Life TV. Today, we have an interview with a good friend of mine, Pastor Charlie Mitchell. He's a pastor, a church planter, a thought leader, a hip hop enthusiast. He loves Nipsey Hussle, and he loves deep theological conversations. And he's a person who inspires me a lot in my church planting journey. So I hope you enjoy this first interview of a new season with Charlie Mitchell. You are now watching Tell the Story Doc.
You got to tell the story, Doc.
Man, when I need motivation, I call this guy. Like when I need ideas, I call him. You know, in our friend group, we call him the RZA. He holds everything together. He always has some ideas in the tuck, and he always has some good things to share with me. So, man, as y'all watching this, man, y'all welcome. I don't know how y'all do it. Do you do this on live? Do you clap on live? Welcome, Charlie Mitchell, pastor, author, evangelist, bishop. You never rapped, have you?
No. Well,
Okay.
I did on mission trips, so yeah, I did do some rapping.
Man, what's up, man? It's good to get on camera with you. You know, we talk regularly, but this is the first time we've kind of sat down and done something like this, man. So how are you?
Bro, I'm super honored and excited to get a chance to be on the Tell the Story Doc podcast with you, bro. So I'm just happy to be here, man.
Yeah. Nah, I dig it. Man, if y'all have ever heard the drop for Tell the Story Doc, this is the guy. He's the voice behind the drop. You got to tell the story, Doc. You know, and what's funny, before we get into too many questions, man, my daughter, she does that every time she sees our channel, every time she sees you. You know, I might be scrolling through stuff and she's like, you got to tell the story, Doc. You got to tell the story, Doc. I'm like, yeah, man.
Yo, that's dope. That's super dope. That was great. I mean, I remember you asking about that and all that. And I'm just, oh, okay. I don't know how I'm supposed to record this. You know what I mean? But we did it. And I was super excited when I heard it. I shared it with my wife and kids. My kids like, oh, okay, cool, whatever. Yeah. But, it's still dope when I hear it, when I see the different videos and stuff. So,
yeah, man. Yeah. So to kind of get into things, Charlie and I have known each other about 8 years now. And we met at a church planting gathering in Orlando. And man, it wasn't a lot of pepper at the church planting gathering. So anytime we get into those rooms, you kind of just look around and look for the guys who you could connect with, you know, similar walks, and might have similar interests. And man, you just befriended me, bro. Like you just, like, I felt like at that moment you were like, hey, he cool. You know, I count him as a part of the group of people who run in this direction, man. And we had a conversation that night that probably changed the way I have, you know, pursued this church planting thing. And then obviously the podcast came out of that conversation too. But as we were together at that time, man, you were there because you were planting a church, right? Yeah. And you were spending some time up in Camden. So man, tell us how you got to church planting, pastoring, you know, wherever the story begins. Go ahead and start.
Yeah, it's I do remember that encounter, by the way, but it was interesting because I was kind of at a turning point in my life, mainly theologically, but just kind of like, where do I go next? You know, I don't know, it must have been 2005. My mom suddenly died. I'm raising my little brother. I was a newlywed, all these different things, which when you have a series of events that happen like this, my wife had gotten really sick. She had got diagnosed with Crohn's disease the day after my mom died. When you have all these kind of moments, and they were all within days of one another, that's going to cause like a theological crisis, right? And up to that point, everything in my life had been around. I thought I was going to be more of an evangelist, traveling, using my voice, but mainly over in Europe. So after high school, I thought I was going to be like a missionary overseas, and I would do kind of more evangelistic type stuff overseas. And but my mom died, my wife got sick, so that kind of put a kibosh on that dream in that way for sure. And so I was at a crossroads theologically, just wondering all the things. Like I know deconstruction is a big conversation right now and all that stuff, but that was huge for me because I'm like, yo, I was going a direction. Thought I was being faithful to God. I thought I was fulfilling my call, and my life essentially has fallen apart. And through a series of events, I ended up meeting some people that just had a different level of, doctrinal conviction. Mm-hmm. So, and what I mean by that is you come out of I grew up mainly in Pentecostal circles, and which is great, and I love it. Like there's a lot I learned and grew in and all of that. But when I went through that crisis, what I was hit with when I was asking all these deep theological questions was, is God good? Why did all this stuff happen to me? This ain't fair. I thought if I did all the right things, God would bless me. Now looking back, that sounds very naive or whatever, but these are just some of those fundamental assumptions that we have in the midst of our church attendance and all of that. And so I'm just like, yo, this ain't fair. This ain't right. This ain't whatever. And I met some people that just had a different level of security and God is like this. This is how we move. This is how this is. You know what I mean? You don't have to worry about that. And I'm just like, what? How y'all can talk like that when everything seems so uncertain?
Yeah.
And, but I still, even though I was disappointed and frustrated with God, I never wanted to reject God, kind of like Job. It's like, yo, I don't want to reject God and die as much as I want to. I just can't. He's been too good to me. I just don't know where to go next. Bruh, I found this dude. His name was Tim. That dude mentored me, gave me a new theological kind of foundation. Mm-hmm. And I would tell him about my heart to disciple people. I would tell him about my heart to share the gospel with my friends and neighbors in the neighborhood. And he was the connector to this world called church planting at the time. So this was 2010, 11, somewhere in there. So he kind of pulled me out of that dark place, kind of put me back on a solid footing, and then kind of pointed me in a direction. Because it was like, man, I know I'm called to ministry. I just don't know what to do. And my house fell apart essentially. And it was just like, help me rebuild the house and give me a new direction. He did that, man. He introduced me to church planting. And it was like, you can be a missionary. You can disciple people. You can it checked all the boxes of the things that I felt like I had lost. Mm-hmm. And from there, bro, I was hooked. And ever since I've been on this journey of planting churches and now kind of transitioning into helping other guys plant churches and fulfill their calling.
I love it, man. So,
yeah.
When I was introduced to you, I kind of knew of you. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Because I was a church planting junkie at the moment, and all of us were like, yo, let's go to YouTube and look up everything. And I think for me, it was Eric Mason, hearing Eric Mason's talk that he did at DTS. I was a DTS student at the time, and I heard his DTS talk. And that led me to hearing about Epiphany, and that led me to Pastor Doug, and then Pastor Doug kind of led me to y'all. Well, at the same time, I heard about Watson and about Brandon and all of those guys, man. So when I got to, meet y'all in Orlando, I'm like, man, this is, it was almost like when you're, man, I did make beats and rapped at one time, so you hear about the guy who is connected to the guy who knows Jay-Z, right. And you're like, oh, let me go sit down with bro, and as y'all were building this thing out, man, y'all were a part of a huge moment in church planting. It's like the Rockefeller thing, y'all were there was Rockefeller, there's state property. Yeah, I looked at Epiphany Camden as state property.
Right.
And then I heard okay, y'all moving into Baltimore and Wilmington and what was the other place?
You had Brooklyn,
where
you
Joe
had
went. Yeah.
Yeah, Gloucester City. Yep.
Yeah. So you made the move along with
Yeah.
Trev to Baltimore. Like, how did that come about?
Bruh, honestly, I wish it was more magical than what it is. I wish it was more supernatural and all that kind of stuff. Bruh, me and Derek literally, after I moved to Camden and I'm doing the residency, we went out one night. This tells you like Derek's his kind of prophetic bent. So I called Derek one night because my wife wanted some ice cream. And I was like, yo, Derek, where's Dairy Queen? He was like, yo, I'll roll with you so I'll show you where it's at. So I pick him up. We're riding to Dairy Queen. We just talking about church plant in the future. We're both going to plant at some point. And we're talking about all these different cities. Of course, in our residency, it was always spitballing going on. Man, which city should you go to? Which city should you go to? So as me and Derek are out, it's like 9 o'clock on a, Tuesday night, and we're just making this run. He says, bro, I think you would be a good fit in Baltimore. And I mean, it had never crossed my mind. My list was, give me the top 10 worst cities in America. I'll go to one of them, right?
Yeah.
That was kind of how we thought we were the meanest, biggest, baddest, craziest dudes. So it was just like, yo, just give me that top 10 list and that's going to be my list. Derek mentioned that. And then obviously a year and a half later, I went through a whole list of just asking my wife, yo, which city? And I went through that list. Yo, what about Chicago? Nope, too cold. Her family's from like Wisconsin. So I'm like, yo, you could be closer to your mom and all that. We could go to like Milwaukee. Nope, heck no. It's too close to family. All right, well, what about Detroit? No, heck no, I'm not doing that. Well, you know what I'm saying? I'm going down this list and she's like, nope, everything's an excuse. So I'm like, from Jersey to Baltimore, it's about an hour. Yeah, it's about an hour and 10-minute drive.
Mm-hmm.
So one day I'm like, hey, how about we just take a trip down to Baltimore? We'll just scope it out. I had already been here a few times scoping it out. So I just said, man, just come down with the kids. We'll scope it out. We did. I showed her the entire city from downtown Baltimore to Inner Harbor, and everything in between. East Baltimore, West Baltimore, everything. Just, hey, I want you to get a full vision of what this city is, the complexities, the layers, this, and that. And we got dinner that night, and we got back on the highway to head back home. 3 kids in the back seat. And as we're approaching 95, I said, hey, babe, so what you think? Well, I mean, how you feeling? She's like, yeah, I could do it. No problem. All right, well, babe, like, for real, like, what we doing? You know what I'm saying? Like, how you feel? It's fine. Let's do it. And it wasn't spiritual enough. I'm like, yeah, babe, I hear you. You know what I mean? The burger was all right, but it wasn't that great. Like, any other, like, anything. No, hey, listen, honestly, she said, I just need a driveway in a backyard, a fenced-in backyard to put the kids. I'm pretty much good. So, but yeah, it'll work for me. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I totally dismissed it because it sounded too, like, there was no, like, tears. There was no, like, the Lord said. There was no.
We fasted for 3 days and we came out with the same
like,
answer.
Like, I mean, did you see Baltimore? Like, did you see what I saw? Just so we all on the same page. Now, honestly, we're in Camden, so it can't get much worse than what we were already in. So she was just like, yeah, it's cool. It might have been a month, 2 months later, I came back. I'm still talking to God like, God, you got to tell me where I'm going to go. I got to make a decision. I got to start raising money, whatever. And I come home from doing some traveling, I pull into the driveway, go upstairs. It's about 11 o'clock. She's still up. She's sitting on the couch playing on the phone. I said, hey, babe, I just don't feel like the Lord's telling me where I should go, right? I just don't feel. And you know how this is. You need some type of security. You need something to, like, validate this decision you're making.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't getting that. And honestly, the Lord had told me, I'll go with you wherever you go. And I said, yo, I don't like that. I don't like that answer at all. Like,
I need some assurance.
Right, because my thing was, if it fails, I want to be able to say, you told me to go here, not like I didn't just pick a place. That's kind of my thinking. Now, that's probably bad, wasn't good, whatever, but it was just how I was moving. So I get home, I'm like, babe, this ain't gonna work. I don't know where we supposed to go. She said, listen, I'm going to Baltimore with the kids. I don't know where you gonna go, but that's kind of where we're headed at this point.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I guess that's it then. And that's literally how we ended up in Baltimore. And bro, stuff just started falling in the line after that decision was made.
Man, that's awesome. Bro, we had, again, this is a peek into some of our regular conversations. And one of the things you notice that aggravates me is when people are sharing their story about the city that they ended up in or the place that they're going to plant. And it's all it is, like, yo, we sat down at a place and a homeless person walked in and said, we've been praying that God would send somebody. And then we prayed and fasted for 10 days and both of us walked into the kitchen and met eyes. But for a lot of us, man, it's like, yo, I know God is doing this work in me. He's doing some work in this place. I can't really shake it. And my wife agrees. And that for a lot, it's for the church planners out there, prospective church planners, that's okay. You know what I mean? Like, one of my mentors told me one time, there's no bad decision as long as you know that you're walking with God. There's no bad decision, right? So sometimes you might not get that fleece. Like sometimes you just got to like walk it out and the Lord will let you know whether you did the right thing or not, So,
and like you say, if I'm moving with a kingdom intent and not selfish, like pure selfish motivation, right? There's always going to be mixed motives or whatever, but it's still like, if I'm moving with kingdom intent, God's going to work it out for me. Not that it's going to be my desired outcome, but he's going to work this thing out for me. Like it's going to work out for my good. Oh, Dad. And so that's where it's important that's why it was really important for me to remember what God had said to me. Charlie, I'll go with you wherever you go. That's huge because he will. He's promised us, I'll go with you wherever you go, right? My spirit will be with you to the end of the age. And it's like, nah, I need you to go before me, go behind me, to the right and to the left, make a way out of, you know what I mean? We want all of that perfect before we step out there. And it's just like, no, I promise to be with you. And I want to make you better in the process. So that might mean church planting success. It might mean church planting complete failure. But my ultimate aim is to make you better over and above some cool stuff that you've dreamt up, right? So, and that's the hard part that we want reassurances around. That I would just, I would rather have Jesus than all the other stuff. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day.
And really and truly, I think there are a lot of us that we want to hear, I know you'll be with me, but will this work? It's like,
exactly.
Nah, the win is that he's with you, right? Even if it doesn't work. And I think you kind of presented that well. I'm glad you kind of ended on that note too, because I want to ask you the question, like, do you think it worked? Like for you, for Epiphany Baltimore, like what are we, 8 years from when y'all put your feet down on the ground? Like, tell me about that journey, and then can you summarize in your eyes where you stand right now in history? Do you feel like it's a success? Do you feel like it worked? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, man, I'm super proud of the work we've done and did with Epiphany in Baltimore. It was obviously it's a rough journey no matter what you do. But it was a blessing in that, all right, here's the assets I had going for me going into this. First off, my wife was with me. So it was never a question of this is a divided household. My mentor told me, Pastor Doug was always like, yo, don't be a tow truck driver, be a limousine driver for your family. Yo, if you got a good, faithful wife and she's down to ride with you, Don't mean she likes it. Don't mean she feels 100% that this is the best thing in the world. But like, I'm with you, so I'm good, and you going with God. Those were the assets I had going for me. The cherry on top was I got a team member that was like, yo, I love Baltimore, and I'm going with you to Baltimore. That was when Pastor Trev came along. So these were assets that the Lord had blessed me with out of the gate. Now, getting to the city, I still resent Pastor Doug to this day for the prayer that he prayed over us when we were on our commissioning Sunday. Like, he did our little commission Sunday in Camden. Lord, we just pray for them. We bless them because as they follow your calling down to Baltimore. I think Dave Rosa was in that service, so you can ask him about his interpretation. But I distinctly remember him saying that we would go down to Baltimore and punch Satan in the mouth or something to that effect.
Yeah, and, that sounds like him, by the way.
Right, but what I'm saying is the devil was ready. You know who's from Baltimore? Javante Tank Davis.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying, and so. The devil was ready for us when we showed up. We're like, hey, yeah, we're going to have a square, fair fight. And it was not going to be a fair fight, right? So we got punched in the mouth. As soon as we hit the ground, it was hard, tough sledding. There's a lot of churches in Baltimore. There was already a lot of good work going on in Baltimore. But my thing was I'm a missionary. So I just want to learn the people, learn the place. We did that, man, and it took us a couple of years to really find our groove, changing the marketing, changing our direction, changing our location, changing, you know what I'm saying, always being in this kind of pivoting position. And, bruh, like you mentioned a moment ago, I remember riding through the city, Trevor coming to my house, just like, bruh, I don't know if we made the biggest mistake of our life or what, feeling those days, getting kicked out of places that we had committed to, people walking out on us. I mean, the whole gamut of things. The neighborhood turning on us because we weren't progressive enough. You know what I'm saying? All of the different stuff that comes with church planting. But, bruh, I remember meeting a lady, and I remember driving through the city with Trevor. We're discouraged, beat up. It was been about 1.5 years, 2 years in the city. And I remember saying to Trev, I said, Trev, somebody's been praying for us to be here. I just don't know who and I don't know where. We got a new location. It was called the League for People. We pull up in there. They let us lease the place, sight unseen, like, yeah, don't even pay us. Yeah, y'all can just come in here, use the spot. One of those real Jesus moments after you've been denied. And bruh, the week after when we kind of relaunched in that space, people walked into that church and said, we've been praying for y'all because we knew we needed a church in this neighborhood. Bruh, those people are still with us to this day. Yeah. That was 2018. Those people are still, one of those women that said that specifically, she was outside my front yard last week pulling my weeds out front since I've been down and out of the church. Like, yeah. It's still like this deep commitment. And the last thing I'll say is, was it a success or not? One of the pieces of wisdom that I've heard over the years is, and we'll say this in church planting circles, like, you don't really know if you made a difference until if your church disappeared today, right, would anybody miss you? That type of thing. Bruh, we've merged the church and transitioned it and closed Epiphany, this iteration of what we came to do. Literally, the stories of the lives that have been changed and impacted as a direct result of what we did through Epiphany is what has like solidified my life. Like, you can't tell me nothing. You know what I'm saying? So like, there's real human beings whose lives have been changed that have endured a ton of trauma, pain, hardship, children murdered. Oh, bro, crazy stuff. And they're like, nah, I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for Epiphany, if it weren't for this community, if it weren't for this family of people, if it weren't for the discipleship, if it weren't for the sermon that you preached on this, and this. Bruh, you can't tell me nothing. You can't. So like, that to me is the testimony of what we were able to do, and the fact that they're still standing and thriving beyond us as an organization still going on. So it's changed and it's iterated, but they're still faithful Christians. I'll tell you this: 2 weeks ago, a woman in our church at Epiphany, she goes in her purse. I shouldn't even say purse. Her pocketbook. She's an older lady. She goes in her pocketbook, sitting at my dinner table, and pulls out 6 years worth of sermon notes that she wrote on all my messages. Bruh, you talking about trying to hold back tears, and then she would repeat back to me for encouragement words that I've said over the years. You can't tell me nothing. We was a doggone success, Doc. Like, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, the church might not be here. The website might not be up, but the ethos and the power of what God did through what we call the church still stands.
Yeah.
Beyond me preaching on a Sunday morning, which is, I think that's true kingdom building, right?
Yeah.
That's true disciple making.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. Man, you answered that perfectly, in my opinion. And, I guess not to spend too much time on it, but yeah, like you mentioned, y'all merged churches with another up and coming church plant. Yeah. And it's funny because y'all still felt new because of a lot of different circumstances, COVID, and then I think there's just a misunderstanding of how long a church plant is called a church plant. Like,
right.
I think when we were entering into this space, it's this 3-year thing, and you can't. 3 years, you just getting started. Like, people just starting to know your name in 3 years. So y'all were kind of hitting that mark of like 5 years, like 6 years or something like that.
Yeah.
And yet there was a younger church, and I'm gonna tell you something I don't think I've told you personally, but when you first introduced the idea to me, I was heartbroken. Like, I was like, man, because you all have influenced me so much. And I love what y'all have done so much. I've been watching y'all for a very long time, and kind of in one of those things like, man, I wish I could do this like this. And you and Trev working together as a team, it's like, man, I wish I had a guy like that or whatever. So I was a little heartbroken, but at the same time, I saw what was going on in your life personally, saw what was going on in Trev's life personally. And I'm like, God is giving them a gift in this. So, I would go 100% behind y'all and say, Epiphany Baltimore, not only is it a success in my eyes, I think there's a lot of people who tried or are trying to do what y'all did in Baltimore, man. Yeah. Like, it's a lot of...
Bruh, I'm super honored you saying that, because that's encouraging, because it stings for us, and some, even as for us with me with vision or whatever, it still stings. Like, we still had to have a funeral service. Like, we still had to go through the grieving process. And I think some of us are still going through a bit of a grieving process, even though it's still like, oh, we're still doing kingdom work. It's just transition a little bit. And but there's still that emotional kind of connection that you had to that initial vision. And so I appreciate you just even saying that, because it's a real thing that we're, all of us in some way, form, or fashion, I think, are still feeling.
Yeah, that's real, man. That's real. By the way, if there are any Epiphany Baltimore shirts around anywhere, send them to me. I'm gonna wear them like a throwback jersey. All right? Man, all right, I have to go here because this is, I said we met in 2015, but we really kind of developed our relationship during the pandemic. And I kind of saw what y'all were doing, and at the same time, y'all kind of saw what I was doing. And I think it was just like this mutual respect. And man, one of the things you did to bless me beyond what I could even express is, man, you invited me to a retreat in the middle of the pandemic where everybody was stressed, everybody was scared to get sick. Half of us didn't even have a church. Like we had lost our churches or lost our momentum, and church planting just felt like laborious at the time. And man, you hit me out of nowhere. It was like, hey, we doing this retreat in Florida, come through. And I didn't even think it was real at first. I was like, what? But man, that invitation brought me into a brand new place as a church planter. And it really helped me be able to say, like, the guys who were there, especially the first one, were like brothers, right? But as we were like moving into this, you kind of expressed your heart about just like playing a bigger part in discipleship, which you've already shared. That's like a core of who you are. And not just discipleship, but discipling men of certain cultures, and then having that spread through churches and church plants in certain places, man. So, whether you want to talk about the Breathe Retreat or Maroon House, all of that. Tell me about the last 3 years of your life and how discipleship has become just a more zeroed in focus for you.
Yeah, I just, since I was, I sent you like in my intake process with all of life. Listen, if you're going to come on this podcast, it's very serious, very professional. So he asked me my influences and all this kind of stuff. One of the people I put on that list was Ray Vanderlong.
Yeah.
And I got introduced to him when I was living in Europe, listening to his DVDs and all this kind of stuff. He had actually spoken at the original Mars Hill, which was ran by Rob Bell. Mm-hmm. But in that, he talks about the concept of being covered in the dust of the rabbi, which then has now been kind of picked up and taken and run with by like John Mark Comer. So, but that was 2001, I got introduced to that concept, and it's been with me ever since. The fact that we need to do spiritual formation kind of differently and all of that. Well, there's layers to that, right? There's layers to that. Especially as a pastor, I want to do that for my congregation. But now in my space as a church planter, I'm really seeing a lot of pastors and leaders kind of fall by the wayside, whether it's anxiety, whether it's stress, whether it's moral failure, whether it's all those different types of things. And for us, especially us that are church planters, it's like, man, I want to reach my community, I want to reach my city. But if you burn out, or if you fall, or if you, like, it creates a crater where we're trying to spread the gospel. And so it's just like, oh, man, well, now we got to do twice the work to recover where people were hurt before, to then get back to zero, to start this whole process over again. And so for me, I just, and it was part of the reason why I wanted to hang or connect with you when I saw you for the first time in Orlando and all that, because over these years, I've just met these guys that are we're just one of ones that are just floating out there in the ecosystem, trying to find these brothers and friends or comrades to connect with. And I always had a heart for that. Just like, all right, how do I leverage the fact that you've encountered all these people over the years? They've got similar heart, vision, desire, but it's like, man, let's just connect. So I just tried to bring those two passions together, that discipleship, but also these leaders, these kingdom leaders and pioneers, try to bring them together. Because it was funny when I got to Camden, I didn't think that was special. Like, I didn't think me connecting with you on the road or connecting with people in different cities was unique. But when I got to Camden and would tell them the stories about all these people, they were like, really? How you know him? How you know him? Oh, golly, you know all these people. And it was like, yeah, because I was the guy in a town that nobody heard of, that nobody cared about.
Yep.
That I'm looking at your same story you told, man, Pastor E, then Pastor Doug, and you're watching the YouTube. Bro, that's all our journey for a lot of us in church planting. And it was like, bro, we would just meet, and it would just be like, man, oh, man, we should connect, we should whatever. So out of frustration in 2020, 2021, I was just like, a lot of mega church pastors get that luxury of being able to have those types of spaces and retreats. And I've been on retreats where I'm the only black guy. And now I gotta be the black guy for all the other white guys that and so you need a retreat after the retreat. And so I'm like, yo, we need a retreat where we can just breathe, be ourselves, laugh, cut up. And so, man, we just made it happen. I didn't know if it was going to happen, if I could make it happen. I literally got frustrated one day in a staff meeting and was just like, Trev, I got to do this. And so we just started making phone calls and making it happen. So I'm super happy that you came, and it's been on and popping ever since. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So we've had 3 of those retreats, and hopefully in the next couple of years, we can scale that. So I'm hoping that we can do upwards of 2 a year, and then do some other kind of smaller things throughout the year. But yeah, that's the goal for the next couple of years, is to kind of help, because there's so many more. Like obviously I was able to do that with you, but there's tens of dozens of more that are out there that every time we do a Breathe retreat, you or somebody else will go, bruh, I got hit up by 12 dudes that were like,
what y'all doing?
I get on the, man, well, how y'all, you know what I'm saying? I'm just like, right, and y'all don't want nobody else to come. And there's always like, yeah.
Hey, it's funny. It's funny though, because it's like, I realized how much in our conversation last year, I realized how much of a visionary you are and how much of a purist I am. Right. So it's like, you're thinking about scaling it, and like we doing micro retreats. I'm like, nah, just like the 8 of us together. Let's just do that every year. But I get it, man. That's how you're wired, and that's how you see things, and I love it.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, for the benefit you've gotten, and you've reiterated that over the years, but other guys, it's the same. It's just like, man, I want something like that. Like, I want to experience something like that. I've never heard of that or whatever. And too, the other piece is there's a lot of things for quote unquote pastors, not a lot for specifically Black and brown, like curated for Black and brown church planters. And it's not content driven. It's not like, we're here to teach you all these things, and it's not a conference. It's literally you're seen, you're valued, you're loved, and this is a place where you can just breathe, be yourself, and eat some good food and have a good time before you go back into the trenches. You know what I'm saying? And so it's designed like that on purpose. So I'm like, yo, I wonder how many more are looking for something like that and could benefit, could last another couple of years in ministry, could thrive, could flourish, could collaborate. So that's the
man. You make a really good point, man. We're constantly looking to care for pastors. Well, I won't say constantly. I think it's a new wave. Is the last 10 years or so. We're talking about like caring for pastors and trying to keep pastors from burnout and all of that. But I look at church planting like having kids. So whenever I had my first kid, I remember somebody saying each kid adds 5 years to your life. Right. So like I had my first kid at 25, and it automatically made me 30. Right. And now I got 3. So I don't even know how old I am. I'm 50 or whatever. But I feel like it's the same thing with church planting. Like church planting is like dog years. Like, 1 year of church planting is like 5 years of just regular ministry. Or pastoral ministry, I'll put it like that, because I think, missionary work and all that stuff, we're way closer to being missionaries than we are to being pastors.
Right.
But people are just like, as long as we can fund you for 2 years, you'll be fine. It's like, nah, I won't be. Like I need a vacation. And what's funny is, like, when we did the first Breathe retreat, I was only a year and a half in, and I was already ready to let go. Like I was like, oh, I'm straight, planting during the pandemic, planting solo. And yet there are so many people who had the money and could probably send us all on 3-month trips. And you were like, hey, let's just get 3 days together, and, no major teaching, we hanging out, we're having fun, we're eating good food. And if there's an organization or a pastor or a church listening right now, that is what will bless your people, so that they can run a little bit longer. Like if you could figure out a way to pour into that, or just fund us, send the money to us, and we'll do it, right?
Right,
Like we'll
right,
curate
right.
it for your guys. Okay, let me stop to pay some bills and share with you about the Connect. The Connect is the space that I'm in right now. It's where I'm recording the podcast, Tell the Story Doc, right now. And I'm glad that you're watching it. But I have to let you know that if you are a person who wants to start your own podcast, maybe you want to be on All of Life TV, maybe you want to have an independent podcast or do something to just get your thoughts, your ideas out there, the Connect Daytona is here to help you. If you're in Daytona Beach, we have podcast packages that we can introduce you to today, literally today on connectdaytona.com that'll help you get started with your next podcast project. Or even if you want to do some video production, some multimedia, just have a place where you can meet and be creative, the Connect Daytona is the place for you. And let's just say you're watching this, you're far off Wisconsin or Wichita or Baltimore or any of those places, and yet you still want to start a podcast. We have people on our team that can help you start your podcast today. I couldn't continue this interview without paying the bills and let you know about the Connect Daytona, but I got to get back to it. So I'm just going to tell you, go to connectdaytona.com so that you can see more about how you can start your podcast or one like Tell the Story Doc today.
Right.
But man, in the first retreat, we had such a great time. The second retreat, though, is when you introduced us to this idea of maroon. And you told I remember sitting by the campfire and you're like unrolling this story. And I'm just like, I work in branding and marketing. So I'm like, oh, yo, like this could be like, we could shoot this and do this way. But man, tell the people rather your heart behind maroon and how that speaks to the same leaders who have the challenges that Breathe is for.
Yeah. Man, the maroon, I don't even remember the inception of it. I just remember feeling like what we do is very unique. Like what we do is very unique, and we're trying to create language around it. We're trying to reach a demographic that's unreached largely. You know what I mean? Many of us are going into these cities or these neighborhoods that are hard to reach, that are underfunded, under-resourced, whatever. It might be black and brown. And so, but when you go to networks, denominations, when you go to church plant conferences or whatever, there's not a lot of language that describes fully what it is that we do. And so we're always in this we're doing double and triple the work to just exist. And I remember coming across this story of these people that were in the Americas. And so the maroon is not about the color. The maroon is a people group that existed in the Americas, and they were enslaved Africans that were brought to the Americas. So North America, Central America, the Caribbean islands, Guyana, Jamaica, all these places. But they were a group of people within those enslaved Africans that refused to be enslaved any longer. So they would escape, and then not only escape, they would create new communities and never be recaptured again. So they're like these exiles in a foreign land, and they can't go back to their homeland, but they're going to make good, like they're going to make themselves survive and thrive in this new environment. And I remember hearing that or learning that for the first time and being like, yo, that kind of captures the ethos of like our rebellious, I refuse to lay down, I refuse to just allow the organizations and denominations or whatever to kind of dictate how I do. Like I'm called by God to reach these people, hell or high water, I'm going to make it happen. And I don't want to just do it, I want to make it work. Like, so we're big dreamers, we're big visionaries, we got big heart, but you kind of got to play outside the lines to make it happen. You got to have grit, tenacity. And I just felt like those elements, that's what described who we are, what we do. But yeah, you still need the time to kind of breathe because it's a lot of hard work that people just don't get. A lot of times our wives don't get it. A lot of times you'll go to a church planting networking event in your community. They don't get it. You know what I'm saying? And so it's just like, man, we needed a cohort of men, leaders, and others that understood that narrative, that feeling, that thought process. So that's what the maroon is, but not just the maroon as the people, but we needed a house where we could kind of come together and be ourselves. Like we needed a space where we could develop resources and collaborate and dream together. Like it's a safe place where you can kind of continue in this journey. So that was the inception of the Maroon House. And all of y'all matched that ethos. All these guys from these different churches that were a part of those initial breathe retreats, right? And so now it's kind of taking that idea and kind of going, all right, can we create more resources, tools, things to alleviate some of the stress and pressure that you guys are feeling? Because we got church planting books, we read a lot, we study, we preach, we're gonna craft it, but it's like I've got to do twice the theological, sociological, missiological work because there's nothing that has helped me to translate what I'm trying to do for these people. You know what I'm saying? So we've all got Tim Keller books, but it's like, all right, Tim Keller was in a major metropolitan city in a wealthy area. He's in Midtown Manhattan, yada, yada, yada. So the complexities that he's dealing with, I have to now recontextualize to an urban, poor, black and brown environment that black church sometimes doesn't understand, white organizations don't understand. I'm here, I'm of this culture, but I don't even really know how to translate it to where they get it. Like there's a lot of stuff. So I'm like, I like that. So I'm like, because I'm a missionary at heart, how can I just do the translation work for my brothers to help them move along faster in their work? So it's not just a retreat, but it's also the tools, and it's the language, and it's the things that help you to grow, to go further faster, without being hung up on all these little technicalities.
Man, that's so interesting. I'm glad you're unpacking it like that. I mean, you've told me about it, but just each time I hear you express it, it kind of allows for my mind to go in a few different ways. It places to where I can share it with other people, but I can also just like express the value that's there. Because one thing I think all of us have experienced, especially those who are disconnected from like some of the network that you get from Epiphany, is when you express these things to like specifically those who are helping to fund your ministries, they usually put you in a place where they assume that you are a master at doing this type of work, that you are a professional at handling these situations. But really, we are just brave practitioners who are familiar with the context, but we don't have all the answers, right? Like, you're right. We read the church planting books. Nobody tells us what to do with like the guy who's on crack, who wants to walk with the Lord, and you're trying to figure out whether it's okay for him to sleep in your extra bedroom one night before he can go to rehab. Like nobody has you know what I mean? So Maroon House gives us an opportunity for us to not just continue to be practitioners, but to share our experiences as we're growing and handing them down to the next group of people. Because there's a lot of cats that they're entering into church planting, urban church planting, whatever you want to call it, and they're basically just being thrown to the wolves. While the people who write the checks are like, well, I assume they're doing okay. You know what I mean? Like he hadn't quit yet. I assume he's doing okay. While we're at home praying to the Lord, like, God, I don't know what to do, but I know that you're with me. Just like you said earlier. I know you're with me where I'm going.
Yeah, I mean, because a lot of times if you're called into church plant for real, you're a pioneer and you're a missionary. Now, as pioneers, you're gonna bring some tools with you. You're not gonna go out there naked and unprepared. You got some skill. Maybe it's pastoring, whether it's leadership, whatever. But a lot of us have not really done deep missionary work on our own cultures. right? So we just assume because I grew up in a black household, or I just assumed in this kind of neighborhood, I get it. No way, Jose.
Right.
Like, you've got to do real work, and especially if you're a parachute church planter, like you're leaving one community and going to another one. So me coming from Southwest Florida, growing up in Florida mostly my whole life, and then going to Camden, New Jersey. Whoa, we all the same color, but we not the same culture. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a different world. And then going from Camden, New Jersey to Baltimore, Maryland. We all the same color. If I don't speak and I just wear my clothing or whatever, they assume I'm from Baltimore. As soon as I open my mouth, where you from? You ain't from around here. And I'm
Baltimore is like the north. Baltimore is like the north south. Like it's like, like it's like the people kind of like there's similarities, but they make you realize like no, we ain't the same now. But what's interesting? I mean, you from Southwest Florida, you could just go 90 miles east to Miami and it'd be the same situation. So like, just because a church planter is familiar with the area, like I'm from North Carolina, Fayetteville dudes is different than Charlotte dudes. It's different than Winston-Salem dudes.
That's
and just because you put something in your perspectives and people are like, oh, he's kind of from there, that doesn't mean anything. You know, when you get boots on the ground, you start to realize how much of a foreigner you are in that context.
That's right.
So you need more than just education, you know, like you need persons of peace. You need tools that kind of transcend culture. You need the gospel constantly like pervading through your life, man. And like the tools that you're building or y'all are building in Maroon House, I feel like those are the things that a lot of those planters can benefit from.
Yeah, I wanted to get to where, y'all have the not customized, but curated tools that just, you're going to have to do that on the ground work. There's no question about that. Nobody from outside can do that work for you. You got to do that. But you don't have to do all the technical work. Like, it shouldn't be all the technical work. You should be, if we can get you 80% along and you do the last 20%, the critical 20%, cool. But right now we're doing, 80% of all the work. Like, we're doing all the work. I got to get here. I got to learn these people. I got to, and like you say, for me coming from the people, well, that's still the South. Well, it ain't. It's not the same South. Well, that's the DMV. Well, the DMV does not claim Baltimore. And Baltimore does not claim the DMV. Now, if you know Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, or D.C., Maryland, Virginia, you go, well, Baltimore is in that region. No, but they do not claim to be any of those things. They've got their own lingo, their own music, their own taste, their own food, their own everything. And so, like,
hey, you know what it reminds me of?
What is that?
It reminds me of Miami, where it's like people from Miami, like, I'm not from Florida, I'm from Miami. I'm from Miami. Like it's similar.
County.
I'm from Dade County.
Right, 305. Like, I'm not.
Yeah.
Now, Broward is different. And all this, it's like, bro, y'all literally on the same street. It's 95 running straight through everybody. It's like, we don't move like that around here.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm like, man, a lot of ways we are behind because we're doing a lot more work. Not because nobody cares. It's an underserved people group. So somebody's got to do the work to help educate us on that people group, to help push us along. And so hopefully the Maroon House can be a place where the next generation of church planters and church catalysts and pioneers that want to be minority led or whatever, or to go to largely minority cities and communities, they feel like, oh, I'm good. I'll do the on the ground work. Just help me put the right stuff in my backpack. So I'm not I'm not out here with no tools.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of how a lot of us end up feeling within year one, year two. Like, I ain't got none of this was designed with me in mind. And it's like, you're right, because they didn't have to design it with you in mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you expressed it that way. I remember the first year of me on the ground and trying to take, what's the book? Trellis and the Vine. And I was like, all right, I got Trellis and the Vine, and I'm just going to do what they say in Trellis and the Vine. And I love Trellis and the Vine. Like, it's one of my favorite books. I had a really hard time doing that. Like, it just did not work. And I had to basically, pull from here, pull from here, pull from here, put it all together. And it's still not perfect. Like, it's still just kind of like, I'm trying to figure it out. Right. One thing I like about y'all's, what you are building right now with Maroon House is that you have these different tools, and those tools kind of point to something that's good. I remember y'all expressing or sharing with me like the boom tool, and I was like, oh, why haven't I thought of that? Like, why? I've never thought of, what they just expressed in the boom tool, and I can see how that can help people. Or I think y'all have like a heal tool too, and I remember one of y'all just kind of expressing the heal tool. But where can people find that stuff if they're interested, especially like church planners, leaders, whatever, as you are constantly building this Maroon House? Like, where can people find all that stuff?
Yeah, so he's talking about, we designed 5 discipleship tools for people of color, essentially. So if you're a church planner, a pastor, a ministry leader, a youth leader in an urban environment, we've just kind of curated some tools that we designed from our experience. Myself, Pastor Derek, and Dave Rosa, we just designed 5 discipleship tools to help you like at a one-on-one level. So you can go to bemaroon.com, and that's our website. Those are free. So they got little videos that explain it, little PDF document that gives you kind of the breakdown on how to use it, how to leverage it. Many of us use it in our church, on our Sunday morning huddles. It just became a part of our language, what you just talked about, the boom tool. I do the boom tool with my kids at dinner time sometimes. Like, they're just tools that you can leverage that don't feel foreign. Like, they feel like it's something that, this is us.
Yeah.
Right. And, and it's literally like, yo, did you have a boom moment this week? You know what I'm saying? And it's something like, for instance, if the listeners are familiar with like the soap tool, people know soap. You know what I'm saying? So it's like scripture, observation, application, prayer. And this helps people to read the Bible in a simple framework to help them to get it as a habit. Well, we've done we've created tools similar to that to help people to just integrate their walk into their everyday life. So if you're a leader, those are free to you. You know what I'm saying? No cost, no nothing. And then we're still building more and more tools, not just for discipleship, but for church planting frameworks. We've got a whole framework for the different stages of church planting called the heart method. Like, you know what I mean? HEARTT. You know what I'm saying? And that lays out the different levels of church planting. We got different stuff coming for like fundraising and vision casting and you know what I'm saying? So we're trying to do all of those things, but also be a community where you feel safe and where you can be honest and open about the issues that you're really dealing with. So myself, Derek, Dave will be coaches, but man, the dream is Byron to be a certified Maroon House coach, and you get those tools. You ain't got to come to Charlie. You ain't got to depend on Derek or Dave. You know the resources and tools, and you can break them down to dudes in your community, so that we can spread this stuff out, so it's not just bottlenecking with 1 or 2 individuals.
Right. Sounds good, man. Sounds good. Yeah. Well, y'all go check out bemaroon.com, right? bemaroon.com, and you can find the free resources there. Before we wrap up, man, you are a pastor, a church planter, but now you're entering into the space of being an author. I'm excited about the book that's coming out. It's going to come out sometime soon, and hopefully we'll get it, in the next couple months or so. But man, tell us about the book. And even before, you ain't even got to explain the concept. Just the title, Nice to Know, is like, man, I love it. And I love it so much because like, that concept of being known, that's just such a big
Right.
concept that I use in my ministry. We're talking about identity and all that stuff.
Right.
And my favorite book is Knowing God. My favorite, Christian book is Knowing God by J.I. Packer. Man, but tell us how you got to this place to kind of put all of this down on paper, where you're saying like, no, I want guys to understand that it's more to life than just being nice, but you have to like go beyond that. So tell us about the book, man.
Yeah, man, one of the big frustrations I've seen with just church life, pastoring for all these years or whatever, is just it's hard to get the best out of men in particular. It's just hard. And then when you really talk to dudes or you're discipling them, you hear all these assumptions about what they think we're saying or stuff that they've heard over the years. And the big assumption is that if you're a Christian, that means you're supposed to be nice all the time. You're just going to be a nice guy. And I'm a recovering nice guy because I grew up a church boy in a lot of ways. Like you learn the lingo, you know what to say to stay out of trouble. You know what I mean? Now you still getting into your dirt, but if you know how to play the game, you can avoid a lot of stuff, a lot of critique, a lot of criticism. And but it's actually now causing a lot of men to walk away from the faith because they're like, man, this ain't for me. I got a lot of things that I'm feeling or whatever processing, and the church is not a safe place for me to be able to process that because y'all just want me to be nice. I got real stuff I'm dealing with. And so I've been dealing with that for years, just like, nah, like that ain't what Jesus asked for. That ain't. But me and myself struggling with it. So I'm a recovering nice guy in a lot of ways, you know what I mean? And after me, like we ain't talking about my health and all that, but me going through my recovery process these last few months after the transplant, I'm just creatively constipated. That's the way I've been able to say it. Like I've just like, there's been things and projects and ideas that I've had for years that when you're a lead pastor, you're in that position, you just got to put on the back burner because there's not a lot of room for other endeavors. And so I was finally like, you know what? Let me just put this on paper, put it out there to begin the conversation with men in particular, that Jesus did not call you to be nice. And you don't have to go around being a mystery to everybody that's around you. Because that's the other thing that I would hear in my own heart and mind. Nobody cares about me, and nobody don't really know how I feel about this. Man, they don't get me. They don't understand me. They don't really understand. And I'm just like, no, Jesus wants us to be known. He knows our hearts. He knows what's really going on. But to have the most healthy and robust and comprehensive relationships, you got to be known. So you can't be walking around with a mask on, playing the part. I'm a good dad. I'm a husband. I'm a Christian or whatever. But all the while internally, you're angry, you're resentful, you're frustrated, you're disappointed, but you don't know how to express it. So the book is going to be an easy read, a book you can read in probably an hour, but it's got one goal in mind, to help you go from being nice to known. That's all the goal is. It ain't trying to be a theological diatribe. It ain't trying to convince. It just wants to help you go from being nice to being known. And so, yeah, I'm excited to get it in the hands of some dudes, man, and have that conversation as they begin to open up a little bit more.
Yeah, I need it, bro. I need it. I don't think I thought about that until we had the conversation recently and we talked through it. Because before I started walking with Jesus, it was very much that I appeared like a nice guy, but really I'm doing dirt. And then after I started walking with Jesus, I felt like, I have to be a nice guy now. Like you think to yourself, okay, I just stop doing dirt. And maybe you don't think it, straight out. Maybe it's just in the back of your head, but you're just like, okay, I'll continue on this path and I'll just stop doing dirt. But then there's this ache that's in you because you're not being your true self. And you're living, with a false identity in a sense. So man, when we had a conversation the other day, I was like, oh, that's like, I feel that. So I look forward to being able to read it. And you know what I think is good, man? You're putting content out there that can kind of combat some of the manosphere stuff, because it's the same ache. Like, it's the same pain. It's fueled by the same thing. But what we're saying is, no, there's a healthier, godly way to go about doing it, opposed to a reactionary, emotional way that just says, be stronger, do more, produce more so you'll have more value. So, man, Nice to Know by Charlie Mitchell. We'll let you know when it drops. Matter of fact, I might interview it again after it drops. And I purposely did not mention the health stuff, because I like for us to have another interview just on that, man. I want to hear. I want people to hear that journey, because that was so connected to your church planting that it's almost like I truly believe that was the enemy, like, pursuing you in a moment where he knew, like, you were vulnerable. And and it could tear you apart, and it didn't. So we're gonna do another interview about that. Yeah, man. We're to wrap up, man. Bro, they just don't know. We were just on the phone last week for like 2.5 hours, so we could do this all day. But I'm gonna go ahead and wrap us up by asking just a few short questions at the end. Man, if anybody follows Charlie on social media, you know Charlie is a hip hop head. So give me your top 3. I'm not gonna say top 5. Top 3 rappers of all time. And this takes me back to the Breathe Retreat with us around the fire too.
All right, so we always go with preference. Do not come out here. I'm just gonna put this out. Do not come out here with no standard, da 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 da. Tupac, Biggie, Jay-Z. You cannot just come out here with that. You got to go with your personal top. What did you say? 3?
Top 3.
Okay, so my top 3 are: number 1, Andre 3000, Outkast. So we got to put that up there. Changed my life in 1996. First time hearing AT Aliens. That's up there. Second to that is Black Thought. Hands down, man down. You're not going to get a better MC, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? He can go toe-to-toe with any rapper at any time. Okay. Number 3, personal favorite, Big Crit. Okay.
Big Crit.
Okay. He is the new school answer for my aching Outkast heart. So taking all those Southern influences and all of that, and being able to just bring all that stuff together in a way that's just new, fresh, but still timeless. I love it. So got that. A lot of honorable mentions, but any day, anytime, you're going to catch me in somewhere in my ecosystem originates around kind of them of rappers. So
I love it. I love it, man. I want to make my way to Baltimore. When I make my way to Baltimore, what's the best spot to eat in Baltimore, in your opinion? Now, don't give me the one that everybody, tells you to go on Reddit or whatever. Like, what is Charlie eating in Baltimore when he wants a good meal?
This is I'm not a foodie, man.
That's what makes it better, because I don't need you to tell me. I hate when dudes be like, "Yo, it's this 5-star joint." Nah, man. If you came to Daytona right now, I'd be like, Bethune Grill's right there, and then there's a Miss Carla's is at the corner store. That's where I eat.
Right. So yeah. So the one you got to do is no. So here's a disclaimer for me. Coming to Baltimore, everybody comes. They want to get crabs. Crabs are not special to me because I grew up in Florida and I'm allergic to crabs. So that's 2 things. And so I'm not interested in eating blue crabs. And they're way too expensive here in Baltimore. That's just my personal opinion. As a Floridian, you can get crabs very cheap in Florida and they probably taste better. But I'm allergic, so I don't know. What I'm going to take you to is to get you some Peruvian chicken. So I just introduced Ern to some Peruvian chicken a couple weeks ago, and he was like, "Yo, what is this?" They marinate the chicken for 24 hours, then put it on the rotisserie, cook it to perfection. Then you get your little fried rice, your Peruvian fried rice, so you get your white rice, your beans, your whatever. Listen, I'm good if I got some Peruvian chicken in my situation. So that's where I'm gonna take you to if you want to come eat some food, some chicken, rice, all that type of stuff. But yeah, that's how I'm moving with the food out here.
I love the Peruvian chicken. All right, two more. You have I would say a gift at recognizing who's out there, who's doing what. And I don't know if you want me to let this out of the bag, but I'm going to do it anyway. You curse me out later. I never heard Charlie curse, by the way, not in that way, but you deem yourself almost as the black church planting Steve Stout in a sense, right? Like just this person who's establishing culture, sees talent, knows how to extract the most out of somebody's activity, right? Who have you seen recently that you're like, yo, this person, they got it, they're killing it, they're reaching people, they're discipling people, they're planting church, whatever it is, wherever you've seen it, who's the next person that you that has caught your attention?
In the church planting space?
Church planting, ministry, church leadership.
Bruh, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a little discouraged right now. There's just, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not, and I might not be as tuned in as I should be because I'm just working on my stuff. I'm really discouraged because I don't see a lot of innovation and I don't see a lot of risk taking in church planting in general. Obviously a couple of years ago we had that, about a year ago we had that article that came out that church planting is dead by a dude up in New York. In a lot of ways I agree with him, which is why I'm kind of stepping into this space. But like I'm not really encouraged right now. Like we got guys that are doing the influencer route, like they've got voices and they're developing their voice, but like helping guys I want to inspire literally the next generation of church planters, leaders, and innovators and catalysts and pioneers. Like I want to see us push against the grain. My hope for like Maroon House is like at one of these breed retreats, we got dudes from the UK, we got dudes from Africa, we got dudes from Amsterdam. Like we ain't heard about them complications of having legalized everything. You know what I'm saying? And then but they're trying to plant churches and there's Bloods and Crips in the UK. There's stuff that we don't even, so that's kind of like, we're still out here having like relational conversations. There's so much stuff that we haven't even tapped into yet that I'm just not seeing really talked about in our space. So I'll be honest with you, I'm a little frustrated, disappointed, but part of why we're creating the Maroon House is I'm creating what I want to see. And so not to say it's not some dope stuff out there. And I think as I say that, I'm saying that for somebody to challenge me and send me something. So that's what I want to see. It's like, yo, I'm saying that.
You acting like Shaq right
Charlie,
now.
you ain't heard about this. You ain't seen this. And I want that because I need to be encouraged. Yeah. Right now, I'm not very encouraged by the innovation. We talk all the time. We got other dudes that's talking, doing different stuff. But how I'm seeing the ecosystem, the game being played, I'm like, yo, we doing the same thing over and over again. What's the new thing? Because the times are changing. So that's just my opinion. Hate me for it, make a comment, and then burst my bubble. Just going in, yo, you ain't seen they got all this? Cool, thank you. Because I want to be encouraged. But right now I'm just, as my pastor would say, unencouraged.
Bro, that's a fact. That's a fact. Listen, honestly, as I asked the question, I thought you was gonna put me on somebody. Pause. But I was like, I was expecting you to like give me a name, and I'd be like, oh snap, let me go look him up. But I very much am with you in that, and I think we will see it. I think it's coming, but we just gotta. I don't see it right now. So man, that's where we stand. To wrap it up, man, I want to wrap it up very similar to what you've heard on some of these sports podcasts. I am looking to I'm producing this podcast for a couple reasons. One, because I just like having conversations with people I know and my friends about the things that are going on in their ministries and all that stuff. Two, because I think we don't tell the stories of church planting enough, like the real, raw, uncut stories, the frustrations, the spiritual warfare, the challenges in marriage and parenting, all that stuff. I don't think we talk enough about that. Three, there's a hole. Like nobody is even talking about church planting anymore. They 10 years ago, everybody was talking about church planting, but now, nobody's talking about it. And then the fourth reason is because I just believe that there is something. I truly believe there is something going on, and I pray that this podcast helps me figure it out, but not just me, the average Christian that wants to know how all of this works. I pray that this podcast helps them figure it out. So I have a goal. I'm trying to do 20 of these interviews by the end of the year. I'm doing it every Friday, 1 p.m., no matter what. Whether I have to interview my daughter again, we're going to do it every single Friday.
That was a great interview, by the way. That was a great interview.
Go check the interview with my daughter. That was like 2 years ago now. We got to do another one. So my last question is this. Who do I need to talk to? Who do I need to talk to, and how can you help me talk to those people?
Yeah, man, well, you've already interviewed a bunch of our friends, I think somebody, which we've talked about this. I want to hear the stories of the OGs, the guys that inspired us. I think they still have a lot of resonance and value, even though they might not talk about those stories as much anymore based on the season of life. That's one piece. And then the other one is going outside the lines a little bit to help us think differently. So a mutual friend of ours is like Trey Van Camp. Mm-hmm. Man, I love Trey's stuff. And I wish more guys had more, not access, but just had exposure to his content to think about how they could apply some of those same principles to, because you and I have done a lot of that stuff. Like we've created stuff just because he was moving a little bit different than what we saw. He was leveraging YouTube for real as a church planner. And it was just like, and sometimes I think for us, we'll get locked in on our lane, but it's like, just expose us to these other voices that have inspired us to move differently within our lane. And so a lot of times guys are like, man, I got to leave and then I got to come back. No, I just want you to get exposure so that you can begin to think about your context a little differently. So I love what Trey's doing, man. Seeing how Ruslan moved with YouTube over those years was crazy. You know what I mean? When he was live streaming every day to build an audience and do different things. Not saying pastors have to do that. I'm just like, what would it look like to move a little differently? That's all. Leverage these different platforms, or, guys starting. Oh, one of my coaches that I had while I was getting coached was, let me see. I had a coach, Sean Banesh. And so he's written like 20 books about church planting and like being able to start a business while you're planting. So like from Jump Street, let's just start a business that benefits the community. You're hiring people from the community, but you're not as dependent on outside resources. Bruh, going through that for 12 months and processing that and thinking through it, so much came out of that. That dude I've only seen him on like 2 podcasts.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm just like, bro, you need to be out here. Like, we need to hear from you, bro. Like, I didn't even know you were doing this. And he's been coaching dudes a lot, but just they don't look like us. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, those are just a few names and categories that I would say, bro, I would love to see. Tell the story, Doc. Get some time with.
And we gotta make it happen, man. So I'm gonna make sure I reach out to all those people. And I thought you were gonna say John Tyson. I thought you were gonna get me plugged in with John Tyson. But it's all
Hey,
good,
I can
man.
do that now. Hey, we can make that JT money. You know what I'm saying? We can make that happen.
Well, as we wrap up, man, hey, I just gotta say thank you again. I'll tell the story another time in another video, but Charlie is one of the biggest reasons why we have this podcast, and he's definitely the reason why we have the title of the podcast and what it is. I thought about changing it because I said, man, it might be something else that might sell to the people a little bit more, but I'll never forget sitting in that parking lot. He said, man, you gotta tell the story. And I said, man, that is it. That's it. Yeah, and that's why we're producing this podcast and all the multimedia that we're producing. I want to let y'all know, go check out everything Charlie's doing. Again, he's a pastor, a teaching pastor, and he's doing stuff in discipleship up in Baltimore at Hopeville Church. There, he's writing this book. Actually, the book is already written. It's going to be coming out soon. Y'all go check out the book, and you can find all of that on his Instagram, where you can see he's Charlie Mitchell, life coach. And click on his link in the bio, and it'll get you to every single thing that he has his hands on.
That's right.
Any other things you got to say before we wrap up?
Nah, man, that was great, bro, and super proud of you, and happy I could share my voice on this platform, man. Let's keep it going.
No, before we, hey, give me one more drop, bro. Go ahead.
I don't even know what I just said. I don't even know what I just did. You see what I'm saying? See how you be thinking? You in multi-dimensions right now. I'm like, what did I just say?
You got I still got the drop where you was like, yo, you got to tell the story, Doc.
Hey,
so we're going to put that right here.
Story, Doc. But, love you, man. Appreciate it.
Love you too, bro. All right, we're going to wrap.